Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Remakes and Continuations with my co-host, Scott, from the You Run Podcast.
Hello, how are you?
We'll see how the episode goes. I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. This episode is not going well for you. I can preempt where this episode is going into an argument.
I have control. I can mute you at any point. So I am back making content, and so this was one we had talked about doing before I went out on break. Because Angel didn't know it was a remake. So today we're going to talk the 1999 horror movie remake of The Haunting.
Yes.
Which is also based off a Shirley Jackson book. It's based on like The Haunting of the Hill House or whatever. I don't know what the original title is, but anyway, I didn't know that either, so I haven't read it. And now there's a television show adaptation as well, but we're going to be talking about the movie.
Is there a TV show adaptation as well?
Haunting of Hill House by Mike Flanagan is based off the same work.
Oh, so someone is able to make this story actually good then.
Yeah, he took a lot of liberties. It's apparently very, very different from the novel, but yeah, it's also not a slight against Shirley Jackson because I haven't read the book. But if there's too much similarities between any of the three adaptations that have been done and the book, this is very House of Usher, which was done way beforehand by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, I absolutely loved his series. Haunting the Hill House was brilliant. So was Haunting the Bly Manor. So was House of Usher. I liked all of them. He's great.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan is special.
He is. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I also really loved Midnight Mass. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, he needs to take over the Exorcist Deceiver because he can fix that. He can fix that and make it work.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a fair thing. Yeah, I haven't seen a single thing he's done that I didn't just eat up. I love what he does. House of Usher I wasn't as bemused with it as everybody else, but it was still very good. Just not one of my favorites that he's done, but no, he's great.
We managed to hold 2 minutes 20 before we went on a tangent.
Well,
welcome back.
That's okay. Look, we were very focused for the ones we did before this, so
yeah.
So I know we're going into this conversation knowing that this is one we're probably not going to agree on.
Yeah.
So I watched this a long time ago when I was very young, and I remembered because I hadn't watched it in decades at this point. But when I when I was going into my rewatch for it, I remember loving it. Like I was like, oh, I love this movie. And so I was like curious how I was going to feel going into it, being someone in my mid 30s. Like, is it still going to be the same? And it's not the same, but I still really liked it. I still had a lot of fun with it, but I did have to watch the original, the black and white one that came out forever ago. And because I had never seen it, and I absolutely loved the original. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch that one first, and then I'm going to do my rewatch and then kind of give my opinions. But yeah, I know this was not one you're a super big fan of.
No, I'm not a big fan of the original or the remake. The original is good when it finally gets going. Like when it actually gets going and they start properly paranormal investigating and they start getting things happening, that's really cool. But the build to that point, I just find a complete snooze fest. And this one, I don't even know where to begin. Do I begin with the huge cast of A-list celebrities who may as well have actually used a telephone to phone in their performances? Or do I start with the clip art quality visual effects? Like The Haunting from 99 is in my top 10 worst horror movies of all time. It's in the top 10. I hate this movie. Like everything feels off and wonky. The cast aren't great. And I remember when I watched it when I was younger, I watched this because Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it and she was hot and I had a crush on her.
Yeah.
But had she not been in this, I don't think I'd have even watched it first time round. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. Like Owen Wilson just feels so out of place. The guy
Yeah.
from Taken, Liam
Liam
Neeson,
Neeson.
he can only play one character. He's got that's just him. He's the same character in this as he is in Taken, as he is in every other movie he's done. And this is the first movie where he kind of took that persona on. If you watch stuff pre-99, he
Mm-hmm.
does lots of different stuff. So this was the birth of Liam Neeson as we know him, I think. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I just take real exception to this movie. Everything doesn't fit right. Nothing seems
Yeah.
to click properly. And then when you get the reveal of the ghost, it's like bend over, double up laughing time. It's so poor.
Yeah, I think for me, as a revisit, I think the pros for me is the location. I think the house is stunning. I
Oh yeah.
think the insides of the house are stunning. The set pieces on this are amazing. The carousel pieces, the books over the water, the staircase in the what is that? I forget what those are called. The like greenhousey type space. I don't know
Yeah.
what it's called, but with like the big giant statue in the water. I mean, visually, like the CGI stuff is awful. It did not age well. It looks like really ridiculous, but the set design for this I think is stunning. And there were
Oh
moments where I
yeah.
was like, oh my god, this is so pretty. Like I love the way, and I still feel that way now. um Acting wise, I think first of all, Lily and the woman that plays Nell can do no wrong in my eyes. She is on a horror pedestal for me. I absolutely love her. In my opinion, she's a super underrated like scream queen. Like she's like, because I know she's in the Conjuring franchise, but she's done a lot of other stuff besides that. And I've always really liked her, and I like her portrayal of Nell. I think that Catherine Zeta-Jones did fine as Theo. She kept it true to pretty much what the original did as far as like character types. And Nell to me was a little less believable in this than she was in the original. In the original, she felt more like a real person and not just an archetype. And I think in the movie she felt, but I think that Lily did the best with what she was given as far as that. I think Owen Wilson was a mistake, and I think Liam Neeson was a mistake, because the guy that plays the professor guy in the original was great.
Yeah.
He's a big time actor too, but I'm totally blanking on his name. But the guy that played him in the black and white did that character so much more justice. Liam Neeson, I think you could almost remove him from it, and I don't know that very much of the movie would change at all.
No, because
So yeah,
he's in it at the beginning when he kind of sets out how things are gonna happen,
sure,
and then he
sure.
disappears, and then he comes
Yep.
back. And
Yeah,
a lot of when I watch this movie, I have a lot of questions around budget. So I have a lot
sure.
of 'cause this had a fairly healthy budget,
Yeah.
and I get a feeling that they got all these names to sign on, and that with Liam Neeson,
Just
like, "We
ran out
can't
of
afford
money.
to have you here for the whole film, so you'll
Oh,
just do a bit."
yeah.
And then I think they've gone, "How much have we got left for the visual effects?" So we have $18, and they're like, "Brilliant, get the intern to do it." That's
Yeah.
because Owen Wilson at the time, he was big, and so was Catherine Zeta-Jones, were huge.
Yeah.
She'd just come off
Yeah.
the back of doing Zorro.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love Catherine Zeta-Jones. I think she's really underrated.
Yeah, I know, and I think like so this was a sleepover movie for me. I remember watching this at like like a slumber party type thing. And I remember being so scared, right? Being young, seeing it. I remember being so scared by it. And there really isn't even any effective jump scares in it, I wouldn't say, if on a rewatch. The things that are unfortunate, and I know that you talked about like not really caring for the original because it was so slow, but I think that's one of the reasons I liked the original. I'm not into slow burns normally, but back then, they couldn't do the effects and stuff, and they didn't know how to make it look that specific way on camera. So less what had to be more because you didn't have a
Yeah.
lot to work with. And this is, I think, The Haunting as a remake is an example of when a story, or not even really the story elements, but the film as a whole is ruined because you did too much. There's too much of it. We don't need, like if they put too many kid things, they put too many, and it's like you get desensitized so early to the what should be the scares when it really should have been more atmospheric and less effect heavy, because it didn't age well, but it also wasn't necessary. There's a lot of stuff that it's just too much. It's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, like that house, as you said, the set, the location is
Oh,
stunning, and
yes.
when it's all lit up, looks incredible. Now
Mm-hmm,
take that same set,
mm-hmm.
kill the power, give them a candle. That
Yeah.
set just become the most terrifying set,
Yep.
especially the greenhouse. So the greenhouse or atrium or whatever you want to call it,
Whatever it's called.
that
Yeah.
set there is very, very scary. It's
Agreed.
quite an open space, but it's quite confined where you've got the plants and you've got the fountain and you've got the statue and you've got all the other stuff in there as well.
Creepy as
Go
hell.
around that and show us it from a POV where we can see the candle flickering, get a little bit of wind, flicker the candle so we think it's a
Yeah.
ghost. Like all of that atmosphere building things that really
Yeah.
good paranormal horrors do.
Mm-hmm.
This skipped like, and even the original does a lot of building the tension and working
Yes.
towards the
Yes.
payoffs. Whereas
Exactly.
this just
Yeah.
went, your house, ghost. And then
Mm-hmm.
after it's done it
Yeah.
once, when it does it next time, because it's the haunting that one of the scary movies parodied, wasn't it? Really heavily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very. Yes.
And the
It's the
parody,
one where he's like coming down the stairs and he trips, the ghost. Yeah,
yeah. And the thing is, the parody looks exactly like the movie until
it
he
does.
trips. And we've spoken about this before, but scary movie parody stuff so well that if you haven't seen the movie and then you watch Scary
It'll
Movie, then
ruin
go
it.
watch the movie, they've ruined it. Like if you watched the parody of The Exorcist in Scary Movie
Yeah.
and then watch The Exorcist, they literally sucked all the fear out of that scene. They do such a good job. And I'm not a fan of those movies, but they
Me
do them
neither.
very, very well.
Yeah, I think like I think that the story, the heart of the story based off the original was a solid story. Like I didn't have any complaints. I feel like they took that story in the remake and they stretched it out a bit too much. It's like it was like I was still really liking it, and I do still really like it. And then it starts getting to the points where Nell is telling the big, not reveal because we've already figured it out as an audience. It's not like a big secret, but when she does the reveal part and she's like manically just blah, 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 like all this information, I was just like, okay, I do kind of remember this stuff now, because I felt like that was when it just started to like go really like, it's like, oh, he wanted the house to have the sounds of children's laughter, so he killed a bunch of kids. And you're just like, I mean, okay, I guess, like, sure, he sucks. But then there's like the
Yeah.
added of the second wife, and then it was really her I don't know. It just went like off the rails. And all of the stuff that worked for me towards that final act is when it really just started to not work as. I mean, like I said, I still really do like this one. I do not think this is on a top 10 worst. I think you're crazy, but I do think that I honestly, a lot of the movies like this that came out around that time were guilty of doing shit like this, where it just went in too many, like just pick a lane, like just pick one story element, stick to it. Less is more. It's the 90s. Like, stop trying to do too much. And it was one of those films that the same thing. It's like it had the people, it had the potential to be something more than it was, and it just went so far off the rails. Like I just can't even like.
The thing is,
Yeah,
though,
the
there were
ending
so
got
many
really crazy.
movies. There were so many movies like this in the 90s that were trying to cash in on this resurgence of horror movies. So we had
Yep.
Scream, then we
Yep.
had Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There was a
Mhm.
couple of really big hits in
Mhm.
the sort of mid 90s where everyone went, oh, horror's amazing again. And then we got this
Yeah.
slew of like
Yep.
paranormal ghost stories and
Mhm.
haunted house ghost stories. And then like everyone was trying to be the next thing. Everyone wanted to be the next wave because slashers had just had their resurgence. It's like, let's make loads of ghost movies. Let's make a couple of zombie movies. Let's make some monster movies. And like we had this
Yeah.
big boom at the end of the 90s. And
Yeah.
most of them were just thrown together. Let's sling some big names in there, get a big name on the billboard, on the trailer. Let's chuck some CGI in there because it's cheap and pump them
Yeah.
out. And we were getting movies like this, 5 or 6 a month at one point,
It
probably
was a
very
lot.
late 90s. Yeah.
Especially like in the summertime. And then like what year did the other one come out? The House
Oh,
on
House on Haunted Hill,
Yeah.
that was 99 as well.
Yeah. So see, like, and it's so hard. Like, I know people who watch this who are like Sherry Jackson. What was her name? Yeah, the author of
Yeah.
the original. You know, they're like cringing right now. But it is so hard in my 30s with the knowledge base of horror and horror writing that I have now. It is so hard not to compare this to things like that and things like, you know, The Fall of the House of Usher, and like, because it screams those story elements. Like
Same as like, you could compare this to 13 Ghosts, which again is
13 Ghosts. Like,
infinitely better.
it's so, and when you look at those films, when you look at House on Haunted Hill, when you look at 13 Ghosts, it's like when you put this up to those, it's like, you know.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if you look at, for example, 13 Ghosts and House on Haunted Hill, they didn't have what this had. They didn't have a huge cast. They didn't have
No.
13 Ghosts had a huge budget, but they didn't have a
Yeah, I know
huge
what you mean,
budget. But what they did have is they had
Mhm.
people who wanted to tell a story. And this feels very much like this is a cookie cutter ghost horror that they've just pumped out. This is not without its merits. There are some things in here that are good, but I saved them till the end. I wanted to get my bitching out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things I
I
like.
mean, I agree. I think that like when it comes to it's hard when you're talking about 90s horror because of the way that horror was produced at that point. Like it just wasn't. And the same really with the early 2000 stuff, you know, 2000 to like 2004 or 5. But it was, I think that the things for me when I went back into this is I really just love the character of Nell. Like I love her across all platforms. I loved her in the original. I love her in this. I loved her in Hill House. Like I love that character so much. And I really, you know, like it's hard because when you have talented actors and actresses, you don't give them a lot to work with. It's hard because the things that these people gave me, I bought into. I think Owen Wilson, as bad as a choice is, I think he's fine for the character, but at a very like mediocre level because like I think he just like walked on set and was like himself. Like I don't think there was any like effort. You know what I mean? Like he very much was just himself. And it was like, but like the Theo stuff I bought, but the Nell story to me was just like when she tells her, like her sister says to her, like, you don't know how hard it is out there. And she goes, no, no, no. You don't know how hard it was in here. I like felt for her. I was like, okay, like this poor thing, she really went through the ringer with her mother. And like, I don't know, like there's parts of that I thought were just so good. And I believed them because of the people giving it to me, even if the elements weren't that strong.
Yeah, I mean, Nell is one of the characters that I do like. She is one of the
Yeah.
high points of this. Um,
Yeah.
Her arc is quite good as well.
Sure.
I like the I don't know. She goes through lots of up and down. She doesn't have a straightforward arc, which the rest of the
No.
characters have a very straightforward A to B.
Yep.
Owen Wilson, I think he does that in every role. Like Owen Wilson is and will always be Lightning McQueen, and that's all Owen Wilson will ever be
Ciao.
in every
Yeah.
movie. Ka-chow.
Yep.
And like for me, he's a really strange casting choice. If I was making a horror movie, a list of male actors, Owen Wilson would never be on my list of people to cast in a horror movie because he's not
Totally agree.
that emotional sort of. He's not a character like when he gets scared, he goes, "Wow!" Like he's not like Scream King material, is he? He's
No,
not.
he's too bro. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's way too chilled. Like in reality, I think in that situation, had a ghost come out and tried to do something to him, he'd be like, Let's chill out and like have a drink and we'll talk about it." And like we, I can solve all your problem. That's kind of how I feel that character would be in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Nell's really good. I actually like Liam Neeson's character, despite the fact that he is that very much. I have a particular set of skills, and it is
Yeah, sure.
psychology. Like I like his character, and I like what he's doing,
Sure.
but he's underutilized. He's the biggest name in there, and he's in the movie for like 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's not much at all because the focus story-wise is supposed to be Nell, but most of the movie is Nell and Theo. Most of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the original is very different to this in tone, obviously in appearance,
Yes.
for black and white, but in appearance of set design and everything else. It is like these two movies, although they tell a similar story, it's hard
Mhm.
to argue like this is a remake of that, but it's
Mhm.
not a very faithful remake of that. Like the whole motivations of all the characters, I feel, are different. Like the Doctor's motivation, I felt was very different in the original to this. Like the Doctor in this is a lot
Yeah.
more underhanded, and I don't know if that I don't know why they made that choice because the original story stands on its own 2 feet. It's a good
I
story. I don't,
It didn't get changed. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we say it doesn't, and then we bitch and moan when we get a beat for beat remake that's the same.
Well, and then in the same breath too, like a lot of the lines are line for line in this.
Yeah,
The Mrs. Dudley's whole like in the dog, her whole thing, that's line for line the same. There are lines and scenes that are step for step the same, but the ones that aren't are just so wildly different. Like the scene when Nell gets out of bed because she hears the tapping on the wall and she goes, "I'm coming, mother." Like it's pretty much the same scene. If you look at the black and
yeah.
white and you look at the new and you or the newer one and you put them next to each other, it's essentially the same scene. But the scenes that aren't like the original are just like out in La La Land. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I always wonder, and we don't talk about it very much. We've spoken about it a lot off camera, but I always wonder
Mhm.
when the writers are working with an existing script, they'll have a copy of the existing script, they'll have seen
Sure.
the existing movie, they'll have a copy of the book. When they're working through that, at
Yeah.
what point do they go, "This is the bit we're going to change"? And we're not going to change it just a little bit. We're going to go like way out there. We're going to change the motivation of the character, which is going to change everything for that character from here on out.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep the scenes the same, but the motivation different. And then it changes the whole dynamic of the way the film comes across. Like these are very different viewing experiences. The first one is slow to build, but
Yep.
it does a good job of building. It builds
Agreed.
tension,
Yep.
and like you get that arc of like almost like fuck you arc from Nell in the original. It's a very much like, no, I've had enough of this shit. I've reached a point now where I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to take it anymore. And then in the remake, you get that arc again, but it's not a fuck you arc. It's kind of there's parts of this where she's very much like, I can't take it anymore. And she's kind of like just she's more of a grisly character, like a whinger in the
Yeah.
remake, and it doesn't.
There's no like power or strength to anything that she does. It just all feels sad and pathetic.
Yeah, whereas in the original, it's not. She's very much like she's a very strong, determined character,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I don't know.
she's also treated more crazy in this than she is in the original. Um, yes, I felt like she was treated like she was more crazy in this one than she was in the original.
Yeah, and that's partly down to the Doctor's motivations. Like the Doctor is trying to make her feel crazy in this one,
That's true.
and
You're right, because the motivation for the whole thing is different.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Weighing them up against each other, the original is far superior.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that because the original was a first watch for me, but I loved it. Of course, I love black and white horror, but I loved it. I thought it was so good. It's
Yeah,
far superior to this.
yeah, and
Yeah,
this I struggle to find something in this that I can attach to. I struggle to find a character that I identify with because most of the characters are either very weak characters or they're just simply assholes, and I can't bond with either of them. There's no one in here like Nell I'm rooting for, but I'm
sure.
rooting for more out of pity because she's so
You feel bad.
pathetic that I like.
Yeah.
Come on, you can do it. It's not like it's not like a strong character where I'm going, yeah, that's it. You tell him, you show him who's boss.
No.
And I didn't find there was no one in this I really identified with, and I think that's so important for me when I watch any movie. I
Hmm.
have to find a character that I identify with. It doesn't have to be the hero. Like there are many
Sure.
movies where I identify with the villain and I'm like, that is amazing. You are great. You're such a
Yeah.
bad person, but I'm fully
Yeah.
in for your story. A prime example of that is The Walking Dead. I
Mhm.
love the character of Negan.
Yeah.
And I fully identify with him. And then they do the big arc of when he actually realizes that what he was doing was bad. And like all of that, fully in
Yeah.
for. But like
Yeah.
the main character of Rick, who's the one you're meant to identify with, couldn't give a rat's ass if he got
No,
killed
not
in the
even.
second season. Wasn't bothered at all.
So I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine as far as one of the reasons I was trying to think back to when I saw this originally and what made me love it so much. And it's something I was going to bring up, which is perfect segue from what you were just saying with resignating. So, okay. So Theo is a very potentially ambiguous, but I don't think so. Bisexual representation.
Yeah,
Theo is very open and like the way she treats Nell and the way that she feels about Nell in the short time that they're together and the way she responds to Nell's presence and the way she treats her, that whole thing, very very bisexual energy. And I think this is my assumption. I think because at the time that I saw this is before any realizations of anything of the sort came into my life. It was the first representation I saw that did not make me feel invisible because Theo is treated not necessarily by Owen Wilson's character, because what the fuck, but in general, she's treated very well as a character. She's not treated like she's crazy. She's not treated like an outcast. She's this beautiful, intelligent, charismatic woman who just also happens to be interested in women sometimes. And I think
yeah.
that representation at that time of my life when I saw this hit different for me. And I don't think it's something I've ever thought about before. I don't think it's something I've ever even really talked about before because I haven't seen this movie in I don't know how long. And but I think that that's another reason when I think about how it made me feel the first time I ever watched it, I really really liked it a lot. And I think it's because I did resonate with Theo.
Yeah.
Not and not because, I don't exist in the world as Catherine Zeta-Jones would as a normal individual, but I think that just the way that she put the care into what she felt for, I don't know, like that whole thing, it just felt really real to me. And even in a rewatch, I love that it's not blown up out of proportion. I love that Nell is a very normal looking person that
Yeah.
this overly not normal looking person is super drawn to. And the way she feels like she has to take care of her, like all of those things, I think just that representation in general just really resonated with me. And it wasn't something I had ever thought about until I was thinking about reasons why I liked it so much the first time I ever watched it.
Yeah, and I think they could quite easily have gone too far with that.
A
That's
1000% they could have, especially using Catherine Zeta-Jones.
yeah. I mean, Catherine Zeta-Jones is a character or an actress who's not afraid to push the boundaries of what
Sure.
can be acceptable and what, like, what was the movie she done with Sean Connery where she played the burglar?
Oh, oh my God, what's the name of it?
Yeah, like that one. Like
Yeah,
she pushed the boundaries on just being massively overtly sexual
Yeah.
because she knew it would put bums in seats. Her sliding herself under a wire and putting her bum as far in the air as she could. She
Mhm.
knew that she was doing that for a reason. But in this, it's not like that. She's not being overly sexual. She's not half dressed.
Yeah.
It's a bond between two people. And yeah, and I can see if, like, for example, for you that is something you will resonate with. But for me, I didn't get anything from that for me.
Yeah. Well, and then the two male characters are like never present. And the one that is,
Uh,
I think you see Owen Wilson's character more than you see Liam Neeson. And you're just waiting for him to go away. Like you're not really like, because that's the other thing, like adding to the persona and the setup for Theo's character is like when she is treated in a sexual way, she's completely not interested in it. Like she completely ignores it, shuts it down. It's kind of a scoff and roll your eyes thing, and it's a move
Yeah.
on. Which I think is, but yeah, it's not a sexual character, it's not a sexual relationship. It's just very like nurturing and caring and mhm. And it just was completely different. And I mean it hits different as an adult because it's like it's those relationships in general are not always portrayed carefully or respectfully. So
No.
I still appreciate that about it, especially considering it came out in the 90s. But yeah, I think that other than that, I think that the Owen Wilson character, well, I don't even remember his name, whatever his name is.
Lightning.
Lightning McQueen.
Ciao.
Oh, that's gonna be the clip to promo the show.
Yeah, I could do an impression of Mater if you'd rather. I do a really good impression of Mater.
But like him and
Ghost
Liam
lad.
Neeson. Oh no.
This is going to be the worst episode ever for you to edit. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving the kid in too. They can just get over it at this point. I'll cut out the other parts where we weren't talking. But yeah, I think that like it's just one of those things, like the two other characters, and it's unfortunate because I think the Owen Wilson character in the original had a valid point for being there, but
Yeah.
that got lost in the remake, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of either of these. I don't have much else to
Love the
say about
original.
these movies. They're bad.
I need to read the book. I need to read the Shirley Jackson. I need to read the original to have like a well-rounded opinion. But what's really funny to me is that I didn't remember that this house was called Hill House. So when he called it that, I was like, in the original, because I watched the original before I revisited the remake. And I
Yeah.
was like, when he called it Hill House, I was like the show?
Yeah.
Like I didn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't even connect the things. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I had
I
no idea. No idea.
No, I didn't. I never connected them together because if I'd have
No.
if I'd have known that what was it, Hill House? If I'd have known that series was
Mhm.
a remake of The Haunting, I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't have watched it because I had such a bad experience with The Haunting.
Jesus. Even knowing it's Mike Flanagan? Well, I guess that was like one of his first ones.
Yeah,
Big ones. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he did
But
Hush, right? But other than that, it was
and he done Doctor Sleep.
oh, I always forget about that. Yeah, he did do Dr. Sleep. I was
Yeah,
late to the game on that one anyway. But yeah,
that's
right.
that's his masterpiece. That's his crowning jewel in everything he's done. That movie is
I never remember
exceptional.
that he did that. I always forget. But yeah, I think I just didn't realize that. So if we ever
Yeah.
decide we want to talk about Hill House, we can, the show.
Yeah.
Because it's a remake. It's an adaptation and a remake. And there's scenes in Hill House the show that copy are revamped visions from the film. The part where she's dancing through the house, the stairs,
Oh,
like
now you've said it, I'm starting to see it. And
I
I've not
know, and that's what happened to me when I watched it. He said, I'm telling you, when I got to the part where he said Hill House in the original, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. But then when Liam Neeson says Hill House, I started watching it, and I'm watching the staircase and the dancing scene, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How? Like I didn't realize. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it didn't go that bad because I did have some with this, but I still really like it. I think the house is stunning, and I love some of the acting and some of the story elements, but it does get a little derailed, and there's too much CGI. Too much CGI.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess that's it for this episode of Remakes and Continuations.
Yes.
Next month we are talking. I forgot already. Oh, Wrong Turn.
Wrong Turn. Another one we're going to just. We've agreed for far too long. It's about time we've had some disagreements.
Yeah, we've been doing this show for over a year.
Yeah,
like
we really?
There's no logical reason for us to be agreeing at this point.
No, but it's weird. We go through a phase of we'll agree for like 3, and then we'll get one. It's like we're polar opposites, and then we'll agree for 2 more, and then we argue for 5 episodes. It's bizarre.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Remakes and Continuations. Let us know your thoughts on all of this: the book, the original, this one, and Hill House. I'm curious how these, they stand up to the original content, the novel or the story or whatever. I'd be curious. So let us know in the comments. Otherwise, that's all we have for this episode. So thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and we will see you in the next one.